Hey guys, welcome to this week's edition of Hillbilly Hobgoblins. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to create your very own character sheet for your first game of D&D. I know one of the major problems I had getting started was taking all of the knowledge from the player's handbook and maybe whatever I found online and condensing it down into a player's sheet. So hopefully what we provide today will give you just a general overview, some good insight on getting started, and hopefully helping you onto your path and adventures in D&D.
Hey guys, so we have before us here a blank character sheet that you can get off Wizards of the Coast website. You can try it yourself. You can go along with us if you want. We're going to fill it out and explain what each section does for a complete beginner. So you're going to learn what all these things mean when you fill them out and what you should put there. So this top section, you start off with your character name. Let's just name our character something crazy. What do you guys think?
John
Bocephus.
Jacobs.
John Bocephus. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So our character's name is John Bocephus. I have no idea how to spell Bocephus, but we did our best. You know what? I should know how to spell that since I'm a hillbilly.
And just to be clear, we're not filling this out for any type of class in particular. We'll probably
True.
do that later on in different videos, but this is just bare bones. This is
Right.
just explaining what everything does.
This is absolutely bare bones. And this next section, speaking of class, is where you will put your class and level. And like I said, we'll make more detailed videos about the classes, but for now, let's say Bocephus is a bard. So Bocephus is a bard. He is level 1. So this is what you put there. You put your class and what level you are. Next thing is background. So when you create a character in 5e, you can choose from some of the backgrounds. They're pre-made things. You don't have to make anything up. One of the ones is that I like a lot is basically a hermit. Let's put that. Let's put a hermit. Can't remember
Hermit's a
exactly what
good
it's
one.
called.
Yep.
Hermit does give you a couple things. When you pick a background, it'll give you a couple bonuses and things, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Player name is your name, obviously.
Hillbilly
Digits
Hobgoblins.
20. Yeah, we're the Hillbilly Hobgoblins. Hillbilly Hobs.
The Hill Hobs.
Race is the next section.
Make him a hobgoblin.
So there's you can. So there's a ton of different races you can pick in Dungeons and Dragons. Each one has a different benefit and drawback usually. One of the races you can pick is actually a hobgoblin. So that's what we're going to make our guy right now, hobgoblin.
Player name Hillbilly Race Hobgoblin.
Hillbilly Bray Hobgoblin. So the next section is alignment. The alignments in Dungeons and Dragons are broken into sections. So you have good, neutral, and evil. Then within those, you have chaotic, neutral, and lawful. So you could be lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, chaotic neutral, lawful neutral, true neutral, chaotic evil, lawful evil, or neutral evil.
Or neutral. Well,
Yeah,
however you want to
true.
say it.
That's true neutral.
Yeah, I
You can be
know.
just true on, and you can be triple neutral actually if you really just don't care about it anymore. But in 5e, really, your alignment doesn't. There's not a lot of mechanics that deal with alignment in 5e, so it's almost. I don't want to say a throwaway section. What do you guys think? It's just kind of.
I think
I
you
think
kind of just got to
it's-
look at it like, lawful, your character. It's more of like a background thing for us. Lawful
Right.
characters follow the rules. They respect hierarchy. Neutral just kind of sit in the neutral zone, and chaotic, are just opposite of the lawful. They live by their own rules, and society's kind of like a throwaway for them. So you just kind of look at it like almost like your attitude towards how you view the world.
Yeah, and mechanically, it is just all for roleplay purposes, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it's mostly there as a reminder to you as you're playing your character. Like, oh, so our John Bocephus Hobgoblin is lawful good. So maybe in this situation he would act this certain way because he's a good person. The
Throws
very
a little
last
flair
section
in their life. Flows a little flair in there.
lawful good characters. I feel like we're lawful good IRL. So there we are.
Well, I would like to say I'm more on the chaotic side of good, but yeah.
Meh. The next section is experience points. And this isn't, you won't be putting anything here unless your dungeon master tells you to. So when he tells you, say, hey, for slaying that monster, you gained 1,000 experience. Guess what? You put 1,000.
Yep, low-key,
That's just to
though.
keep track. If you're leveling by experience, once you gain, let's say you gain level 2 at 10,000. Hey, when you get to 10,000, boom,
Yeah.
you're level 2 now. You can change this to level 2.
And for any aspiring DMs out there, experience points are a pain to keep up with. Just milestone level. Just level by milestone. That's my advice.
They are. Especially, this is a really tutorial for new players, and experience points aren't just not something you should keep up with. What he's talking about is there's a thing called milestone leveling where your DM will just decide, like, after you guys complete this mission, everybody gets level 2, no matter what the experience is.
Even
That's
the
milestone.
even the pre-written modules, they tell you when to level up and things like
Yeah.
that, and that's milestone leveling.
Our next section we're going to talk about is your ability scores. Jeff, take it away.
Okay, ability scores. We want like just a brief explanation on each one. So
Yeah, just let
strength.
them know what's going on there.
Strength is how hard you hit stuff. Dexterity is how easy it is for you not to get hit. Constitution is how many hit points you have, how tough you are. Intelligence is how smart you are. That's pretty fair. Wisdom is how wise you are. The best way I can distinguish between intelligence and wisdom, because I've had a lot of players like ask me what the difference is intelligence is knowing how to cook an egg, like knowing how to fry an egg, and wisdom is knowing what an egg is. If that helps, it helps me a lot. And charisma is how charismatic you are, how good you are at talking to people. So if you wanted to try to persuade somebody to give you something, if you're trying to persuade a shopkeep into giving you a discount, you would use charisma. What else? Like strength, that's pretty straightforward. That's that directly relates to
It's how strong you are, man.
how strong you are, how well you can hit stuff. The only skill check you have with strength is athletics, right?
Yes.
That's
And
the only one.
yes, athletics.
And dexterity in the vein of strength is like how hard you are to hit, so how quickly you can dodge something. A lot of classes, dexterity directly affects your armor class. So dexterity directly affects how hard it is for an enemy to hit you. And we'll go over armor class a little later.
And also how precise you are at hitting enemies.
So
with
if you're
ranged
using,
attacks, that is.
yeah, if you're using a like a longbow or a crossbow, you would use dexterity.
Another thing to note here with when you're determining your ability to scores, after you determine them, you really want to place them in places that suit your character as well for like racing class benefits. So like if you had someone that was a fighter, most likely they're going to put their highest ability score in something like strength.
Yeah, strength or dexterity. You determine your ability scores by well, there's a bunch of different ways. You can roll for your stats, and there's a few different ways you can roll for them. That's my favorite way to do it. There's point buy, standard array.
That'll all be up
That's
to your
about it,
DM.
right?
That's not something
Yeah,
you'll have
that's
to worry
all.
about.
That's all DM's discretion. I always tell my players to roll 4d6, drop the lowest. Some players or some DMs may want you to only use standard array. It varies from table to table.
And your DM in the preferred method will tell you exactly what to do to gain your stats.
When you're getting ready for a game, if you have a DM that even kind of sort of knows what they're doing, they have a preferred way for you to roll your stats or for you to get your stats.
Like Matt was saying, where do you want to put your ability scores? Now, nothing's written in stone, right? I mean, you can have a wizard that's really dumb, and that's fun sometimes. It's really about what you want to do. But when you look in your player's handbook, also, I mean, we didn't mention this at the start, but you need a player's handbook if you want to play D&D. That's the bare minimum thing you need to invest in.
That's actually, as a player, that's all you need to play
Yeah.
D&D.
I mean, there are other books that have different character options in them, but you have to have a player's handbook, and you can get them $20 all day on Amazon. It's the bare minimum investment, I feel like, to play D&D. But when you look up your class, like say our Mr. Bocephus here is a bard. So when we look up bard in the book, it will tell you that the bard's spellcasting modifier and abilities are based off his charisma.
Yes. So that
So it's
means
going to
you're-
tell you what's important to you. And you want
Yeah.
to put a high score in that, usually.
usually your highest.
Yes.
And you can also look up guides online as well when you're building a character, and it'll tell you a lot of these guides will mention something called a dump stat. And what a dump stat is just one of the main stats: dexterity, strength, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. It's one of those that does not matter at all to your class. That gets in if you want to get into more of the min-maxing aspect of it, of like making really strong characters, that's when you need to worry about that. But there's certain stats that, say a bard, for instance, he doesn't need real high strength.
Right.
So essentially, me looking at this when I first came to it, and you'll have a little bit more experience than I do. I had a hard time understanding ability scores and modifiers. So essentially, what
Right.
you would be telling a new player is that we're going to roll dice for your ability scores, and you're going to read in your player's handbook what they use of those abilities to do most of their actions, and you're going to put your highest ability score in those specific places. And then if you have one that's really low, you might put that in a specific ability that you don't use.
Yes.
And then associated with those ability scores, you have modifiers, which go in the
Correct.
little tiny box underneath the scores, and that's what you add or take away from your dice rolls to perform specific action.
Right. And that's what we're going to talk about next, the modifiers. So, Jeff, I know you can't see it, but I've filled out this character sheet for our bard with just a standard array just to get it going.
Oh,
And I have a
quiz
15
me.
charisma.
Quiz me. Give me the score and let me tell you what the modifier will be.
Charisma is 15.
15 modifiers plus 3, right?
Plus
No, it's
2.
plus 2.
Plus 2 because it's 15. Yep. It's,
So the way your modifier works, real quickly,
I was so
is,
confident. Damn.
10 is considered
Average.
standard, like a normal human average, correct? Yes, that's the word I was looking for. A normal human that you would encounter out in the streets probably has an intelligence of 10. It's just the average for a normal person.
No. In D&D.
In
world.
Dungeons and Dragons. In the real world, the average intelligence may be a 2 at best.
They can
So for
barely
every
breathe.
2 points you go above 10, you get plus 1 modifier.
Yep. So a 12 is a 1, a 14 is a 2, a 16 is a
Right.
3, and the
And in between scores, like a 15, it's in between 14 and 16. You don't get anything. It rounds down.
that's a good rule to have. Just to know in general though with D&D is that the numbers always round down.
And you also needed to, you do not have to memorize these modifiers and their scores, because there's a table in your player's handbook that will
Right.
show you the correlation.
But just to help you understand where they come from, going down from 10, every odd number, you lose 1.
Yep.
So my strength is 8 on this bard, on Mr. Bocephus.
So that's minus 1,
So
right?
minus 1 strength.
Yep.
Just tell me what these modifiers do
Okay.
on rolls.
So say you and your bard, you're about to take damage from a trap, something shooting out of the wall at you, something like that. And your DM tells you to roll a dexterity saving throw to see if you can dodge it. What you're going to do is roll a d20, and if it's dexterity, you're going to roll that d20, and whatever number pops up on that d20, you're going to add your modifier to it.
Even if it's negative.
Even if it's a negative modifier, yeah. If it's a negative modifier, that just means you subtract it. So if you have a plus 2 in dexterity and you roll a 12, that 12 becomes a 14.
Speaking of, I feel like we've covered that pretty good. And speaking of saving throws, coming up on that, just real quick to hit the boxes above saving throws. Inspiration is something you only have to worry about if your dungeon master tells you have gained inspiration. I usually put like a little X in there to let myself know that I got it.
I
Your
like little
dungeon master
stars.
can literally give these out at will. Like if
Mhm.
he thinks you made a good decision, or you role played something really well, or you made a funny joke, whatever he wants to give it for, he can say, hey, you gained inspiration. You check this box. And what that means is any roll while you have inspiration one time, once you use it, it's gone. you can, like, let's say you're rolling a d20, like he said, to avoid a trap, and you roll a 1. And you're like, well, I'm dead. No, you have inspiration, so you can use your inspiration to re-roll that roll to hopefully get a higher roll.
Yep. Any roll that you use a d20 for, any roll that you use a d20 for, you can use inspiration to re-roll that, essentially.
Right.
And there's a lot of d20 rolls in Dungeons and Dragons. That's the most important dice.
So your proficiency bonus, you don't really ever have to worry about it. If you have your player's handbook, it tells you what your proficiency bonus is at every level. It's a set thing for set levels. So you start off with a +2, and I think maybe at level 4 you gain or 5 you get a +3, and it just goes up as you level.
Yeah,
And
every
so
couple
really,
levels.
it's something you'll never have to worry about on the sheet. You will have to use it in the game, but
there's
we'll
no
explain how that happens too.
There's no way to calculate proficiency bonus.
No,
It just
it's
happens
just a
as you
set
level
number.
up. No.
Right. So the next thing is saving throws. And right off the top of my head, I have no idea what Hobgoblin Bards are proficient in. But when you look up your class, it will tell you that. So let's say it says in the player's handbook, you are proficient at charisma and wisdom saving throws. What you do is you click these little bubbles right here. And then you fill out what's your charisma modifier, a +2. But because you're proficient in it, you get to add your proficiency bonus as well, making it a +4. Same with wisdom. We'll make it a +3 because we're adding our proficiency. The others that you're not proficient in, you just put whatever your modifier is.
I think one
It's
thing
that
that's important to
simple.
know is what a saving throw actually is. So explain a scenario where, this bard might have to use a saving
For
throw.
purposes of filling out your character sheet, just anytime your dungeon master asks you to make a saving throw, just if he says make a dexterity saving throw, you're going to roll that d20, and then you're going to look at your saving throws and see you have a 0, so you're not going to add anything to it. But saving throws are useful. A lot of spells have saving throws to try to save against the effect of the spell, to try to shrug it off or try to avoid traps, things like that.
Yeah, the easiest way to describe, to explain saving throws is that's what you use when you try to avoid something. So when you're trying to avoid something that's going to cause harm to you, you would roll a saving throw.
Right.
That's
so
like
our,
a spell or a trap or something.
our
It
Hobgoblin Bards
varies.
is looking good so far. This next section, skills. You want to hit that one, Jeff?
Let's tag team it because this is the longest
So
one.
skills. So the very first thing you want to do when you're putting your skills in is look on your player's handbook, and it'll say something to the effect of you can choose 2 skills to be proficient in between such and such. So let's say we want this bard to be a super good performer. So maybe we're going to click performance as one of our proficiencies, and the next one may be persuasion or deception. Let's say it gives us all 3. So now we fill those bubbles in. We're going to go down through here and put the modifiers that we gained from this left side that my mouse is over into the correct skill. So acrobatics, it has dex next to it, which means it is a dexterity modifier. And our dexterity modifier is 0. So that's what we put in. Wisdom, we get a +1. We're going to put that in. Arcana is intelligence. We have a +2 to intelligence because we're smart little boys.
We're smart
Athletics
guys.
is strength, which is -1. So unfortunately, we do have to put that in. Okay, we're up to our first one, though, that we're proficient in, which is deception, Jeff. You want to explain what being proficient means in it?
So proficient just means that you're particularly good at something. So what is your
Deception is a charisma, and our
deception?
charisma is
Okay.
+2.
+2, so it would be +2 plus your perception bonus. If you're level 1, your perception bonus would be +2 as well. So
And it means
that
plus your proficiency bonus.
isn't that what I said?
Perception, which is another skill we're going to talk about
Proficiency,
down here
that's my
later.
fault. Yeah. At level 1, your proficiency bonus is +2, so your deception would be +4 total.
Right,
Because
like I said right here, your proficiency is +2, and your charisma is also +2.
and that's just that's all of your skill proficiencies are going to be directly related to your class or your background. and it just means that you've done these skills long enough to where you get a little bonus when you try to do them.
And don't worry, really quickly after we finish explaining how to fill this out, we're going to go through just a super quick description of what each of these things are, so you'll know what you want to pick to be proficient in.
Yes.
Intimidation is charisma, investigation, intelligence. I'll go ahead and fill this out real fast so you can see the end result, how it works.
Yeah. While you're filling those out, I'm going to go ahead and just talk about passive wisdom, passive perception, and
Right,
that's right beneath skills. That is your ability uh, to notice things without rolling, basically. Passive wisdom is, say there's a creature or a human, another character, NPC that is trying to sneak up on you. The way that would work is the dungeon master would roll stealth for that creature, and if it is over your passive wisdom, that means you don't notice it. If it's under, that means you notice somebody trying to be a little sneaky boy on you. And the way you
Right.
calculate that is it's 10 plus your wisdom modifier. And if you're proficient in wisdom,
Or
your
in
proficiency
perception.
bonus. If you're proficient in perception, wisdom, perception, same thing, whatever. It's not the
It's
same thing, I
not the
know. I was reading online and it has wisdom with perception in brackets. But if you're
True.
proficient in perception, then you add your proficiency modifier. If you're not, it's just 10 plus your wisdom score.
And our boy Bocephus is not very perceptive. He's not proficient in it, so his is 11 because his wisdom modifier is 1, so it's 10 plus 1. And I'm not a math expert, but I believe that's 11.
Maybe.
And you don't have to worry about when to use that. Your DM will tell you, hey, either roll perception or he'll just say, hey, you happen to notice out of the corner of your eye this happening because he looked at your passive perception
Yeah. He may
and
ask
decided
you
you
to.
noticed something.
He may say, "What's your passive perception?" when he's trying to have
Yeah.
some creepy spider guys trying to sneak up on you or something
Hopefully,
like
hopefully he doesn't say that because that will kind of ruin the moment.
that.
But if he does, it's fine. Just, hey, that might be a good trick for DMs out there. Maybe asks for that sometimes for no reason at all.
That's what I do. That's what I was just about to suggest. I'll ask what passive perception is like an hour before an encounter.
So real quick, I'll just go down this list and knock these out. Acrobatics is exactly what it says. Your ability to do flips and like maybe you're trying to do a big parkour event. Your dungeon master will ask you to roll acrobatics to try to like flip over a table, or there's some attacks that you can escape with acrobatics as well, and he'll ask for that roll. A lot of attacks, if it'll ask for acrobatics, you can substitute with athletics.
I think most of these are pretty self-explanatory, like animal handling, how well
animal
you learn
handling.
animals. Arcana is maybe explain how Arcana checks work because there's a lot of confusion with
So
Arcana checks.
is your knowledge of magical things. So like if you encounter some runes carved into the side of the wall, and you say, hey, I want to see what these runes, do I know what these runes mean? Your dungeon master will say, hey, well, give me an Arcana check to see if you can decipher what these magical runes mean.
Not to
And
be
if you
confused
roll high
with,
enough, then you can.
yeah, not to be confused with trying to figure out what a magic item is.
Right.
An Arcana check will let you know if an item is magic or not, but you can't.
It's technically not supposed to because there's a spell for that
Identify, right?
called,
Identify
detect
and
magic.
detect magic as well.
Yeah.
So maybe you can check to see if it was built by something magic. I don't know.
But
There's
you are
ways to
correct. A lot of
incorporate it.
DMs will let you, especially if your party's kind of lacking in magic users, they'll let you roll an Arcana check to see if you can identify whether something seems magical to you.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. If something seems magical, instead of using an Arcana check to just identify a magic item.
Right. Athletics, that's exactly what it states. It's how athletic you are.
That's also what you'll use if you try to grapple somebody.
Right. Deception, it's how good of you are at lying. Straight up. That's it. That's all it does.
Yep.
One of the easiest ways that I learned some of these, because I looked at these, I thought this was kind of very broad, large, a lot of information, was that I went to Google and there are several websites that will list out like quick hits on all of these. And you can look at them pretty easy and kind of understand how to use them. I'd say that's probably the easiest thing to understand on this sheet, actually, or, you know, trying to understand how to use these skills specifically. And then your character will also be, you know, may use another skill more than another one. But, you know, Google is a really easy, helpful tip on a lot of these to make it quick and easy and fast.
There you go. When in doubt, Google. When in doubt, hit the old Google.
I use Google at least 4 times a game when I
Exactly.
Yeah. I know all the rules. I'll look up rules that I absolutely know by heart just to check.
Yeah, same.
History?
History is how well you can remember something is the best way that I have found to use history checks.
It's like your knowledge of the region as well.
Yeah. But
like if somebody's like, you know, back during like a Critical Role, for example, if somebody's telling a story, it's like back during the Calamity, and you're like, do I know what the Calamity is? Dungeon Master will ask you to roll a history check to see if you remember the lore of what the Calamity is, something historical fact. Insight is your way to tell if someone is lying or if someone is acting in a manner that they don't normally act. If you can tell that something's wrong with them. Intimidation is your ability to intimidate people for either information or to make them maybe run away from you. Investigation, that's your Sherlock Holmes stat. It's how well you can investigate. So I know a big confusion usually is between investigation and perception.
Mm-hmm.
If you're standing looking at things, trying to see if something's out of place, that's perception. If you're physically going up to things and manipulating, looking through drawers or something like that, that's investigation.
Yeah. Investigation is hands-on. Perception is observing.
Yeah, that's basically the best way to understand it. Medicine, that's your knowledge of medicine of the region. You can try to stabilize people. You can, if you find an herb out in the wilderness and you say, hey, can I make a healing potion out of this? Your DM might say, hey, roll me a medicine check to see if you know what that thing is or if you're about to poison your entire party. Nature, that's your knowledge of nature, of natural creatures, plant life, things like that. Perception, we just talked about, is your ability to spot things that are out of the ordinary. Performance is exactly what it says. If you try to put on a performance, maybe you're trying to play an instrument to distract some people. So you'll roll a performance check to see if your playing of the instrument is good enough to make people turn their heads. That's one of my favorite stats, really. It's underutilized. Persuasion, your ability to talk people into things. Religion is it's sort of like Arcana and history, but it's your knowledge of religious symbols, events, things like that, deities. Sleight of hand, your ability to steal things or hide things without someone seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Stealth is exactly what it says, your ability to be sneaky. And survival is your ability to survive without necessary equipment.
So if you're trying to track something through the wilderness, or if you're trying to navigate, survival is the check you'll use for that.
Right. It's used for actually just a lot of things.
Those are the ones that come to mind when I say it, though. That's what I've been doing.
That's the main things. Because not a lot of people leave without a map proper supplies.
Yeah. I mean, you can, but
we're not recommended in here. So the next thing is your armor class. Jeff, let them know what armor class does.
I'll just knock all three of these out real quick. Armor class is how hard it is to get hit with a physical attack. So if somebody's swinging a sword at you or trying to shoot an arrow at you, your armor class is the number they have to roll to do damage to you, essentially. Armor class is calculated by the type of armor you're wearing and you can throw in dexterity in there as well,
Uh,
depending on the type of armor.
Your base armor class is 10
10
plus your
plus
dexterity
dex, yeah.
modifier. So our guy's armor class is just 10 right now. His dexterity modifier is 0.
But word to the wise, unless you're a wizard, always wear armor. Unless you have a class that tells you you have an armored AC, but we'll go into that later. Initiative is so whenever you get into combat into Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to roll initiative, and whatever you roll, you're going to add your initiative score to it. The base initiative stat is just your dexterity modifier, but certain classes have initiative like extra initiative modifiers. That's the best way to word that. Like certain classes let you add more to initiative than just dexterity, and that determines the order in which you are in combat.
Yeah, for those that don't know, D&D is a turn-based combat system. So you and 4 other characters and whatever you might be going into combat with will roll, and whoever's the highest roll starts the initial turn, and then it's turn by turn based on that.
Yes. Speed is how fast your character is. Speed does not really come into effect unless you're in combat.
Right, and it will be denoted on your race.
Yes,
So
your race.
Hobgoblin, we have a 30 feet of move speed.
Certain classes will also give you you can have abilities that raise that, and just it depends on your class and race. But speed is how much you can move during one round of combat.
So your hit points is determined by your constitution and hit die. What your hit die is, real quick, is every class has their own hit die. And it will tell you in the player's handbook what it is. And a bard is a D8.
Yep, and the number of hit die goes up as you level. So level 1, you have 1 hit die. Level 2, you have 2, and so on and so forth. Current hit points is pretty self-explanatory. That's how many hit points you currently have. And then
how you do that is you'll roll your hit die. And let's say we roll an 8. And then we add our constitution modifier to it, which gives us 9 total hit points. Like you said, hit die. This is something you can spend on a short rest to heal yourself up, and your dungeon master will tell you when that is appropriate to do.
Yes. Temporary hit points. If there's a spell or any kind of effect that gives you temp HP, you can write them here. Always expend your temporary hit points before going to your actual hit points right above it.
Death saves.
Yes.
So in 5th edition, when you go to 0 hit points, barring certain scenarios that we'll talk about in a later video, you do not die. You go unconscious and begin to make death saves on your turn. And you will mark these successes or failures. On 3 successes, you are stabilized and you are no longer dying. On 3 failures, you die and your character is gone.
And the way you determine if you succeed or fail is you roll a d20. If it's above 10, then you succeed. If it's 9 or lower, you fail. And
right.
there's no modifiers or anything for death saves.
So,
it's just all up to the gods.
So just for reference, let's say that we had our character that had 8 current hit points, and I took damage from another NPC that might take me down completely to 0. When it turns back to my turn, I don't die. I have the option to try to succeed or fail at death saves, and I'd roll a d20. And if I rolled higher than 10, it would be a success. If I rolled lower than 10, it would be a failure.
And also something else to add about death saves. A natural 1 is 2 fails, and a natural 20, you are up with 1 HP.
So let's say the next section is attacks and spellcasting. So let's say we have, and this is just something you'll have to fill out. You'll have to talk to your DM about this because it's equipment based a lot of the times.
And
let's say though, for instance, our bard has a dagger, and that's going to be the name of this attack. Our dexterity is 0 and our strength is -1. So we're going to use the dexterity. So our attack bonus is 0. And the damage of a dagger is 1d6.
1d4.
1d4. Piercing damage, I believe. So that's what you write in. It doesn't fit. That's what you'll write in there. Oh, it does fit. Smells scratch. And that's what you'll do for all of your attacks, different attacks. You don't have to do it, but it's just a helpful reference.
Yes. Most people when they play now they use digital character sheets anyway.
Right.
And
So it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. But the way you determine if you hit a creature or not, if you're using, your dagger, you would roll a d20 and add your proficiency bonus if you're proficient with a dagger. If you're not, then you don't add that, and your dexterity modifier as well.
Or
And
strength,
if
according to whatever you're using.
Yep, and if that number is more than whoever you're trying to hit's AC, their armor class, then you hit, and that means you get to roll damage. You can roll that d4 and add your dexterity modifier or strength modifier.
So these other things up here on the right side, personality traits, ideals, bonds, flaws, those are just, there are, in the player's handbook, there are suggestions for these, but you can just put whatever you want in there. This is all for your character's background flavor. So
Yep.
maybe you have a bond, one of the other characters. Maybe one of your flaws is you love to gamble. So you put that in. It's kind of a reminder to you while you're role playing.
That's all role play. That has nothing to do with character mechanics.
Other proficiency languages is things like maybe my bard is proficient with playing a lute. So I'll put that there. Lute playing proficiency. Languages. Maybe he speaks Goblin.
Yeah,
he definitely speaks Goblin. Maybe he speaks Elvish. So you just put all those things in there. It's once again another quick reference. You'll notice we've went through the meat and potatoes of the pages. The rest of these are all just reference.
Yep.
Here's your equipment. You just list any equipment, any gold. This is copper, silver, gold, platinum, and what's the E?
I don't remember.
Nobody uses it.
No,
it is
go ahead.
Electrum.
Electrum.
Electrum. I did Google it.
No.
There's an entire currency exchange here. Your DM will let you know. A lot of DMs just use gold, copper, silver.
I'm a lazy DM, and everything is gold. If it's cheap, it's one gold. If it's not cheap, it is more than one gold.
Right. That's the way to do it. Features and traits, these are the things you'll get as you level up. Let's say Bard has inspiration as a feature. Bardic inspiration. And we'll go into what that does later on when we go over the classes, but this is where you'll just list your features and traits that you have.
Get those from your class and your background.
The next page is just all about background, by the way, Jeff, speaking of, and this is where you just list, we won't go through this, but you just list your age, eyes, your character's physical description, any allies you have, your backstory. If you gain any treasure, this is where you put it.
Yeah, that's all role play stuff. We're not going to go into that because we're trying to get you to play the game as quick as possible.
And the next page is spellcasting. So our man's spellcasting class is going to be whatever your class is that casts spells, which in this instance is Bard. And a Bard's spellcasting ability, as stated in the player's handbook, is Charisma. Your spell save DC is going to be based on your charisma. And it's going to be if you read a spell and it says they need to save against your spell save DC, which is 8 plus your spellcasting modifier plus your proficiency. So in this instance, it is 12. Spell attack bonus is going to be whatever your modifier is. In this instance, once again, it's charisma, so it's +2.
Wouldn't it be plus proficiency as well?
No, your spell attack does not get proficiency.
Weird. Didn't know that.
Yeah, it's just you're right. It is your proficiency as well. +4.
I was right.
This man was right. You always want to have that proficiency when you can.
Let it be known that I was right.
Then hurriedly through this next part, this is just where when you pick up spells, you're going to write them in here.
Yep,
so when you pick up a cantrip, you write it here.
Yep,
every
spell has its own level 1 through 9. The spell will tell you what level it is, and your character leveling table will tell you what spells you have access to.
The only other thing on this sheet are these bubbles that say prepared. Some classes need to prepare spells to be able to cast them. So when you take a rest, you have to pick. Like it says, if it says you can prepare 3 spells per day. So if you have a list of 40 spells, but you can only prepare 3. So you have to click which 3 you want to take with you the next day. And those are the 3 you can cast. You can't cast these other ones.
Yep, and it will tell you in the player's handbook which class is prepared and which classes are prepared, and which classes are known spellcasters like wizards who just know their spells.
Right.
It
And
also
they
has a
don't get to
large
switch
table
those out.
that makes it
Yeah.
pretty easy to understand how to expend cell slots and how many you
Yes.
get at each level.
Each class does have a table, yeah, and it's a really good table, honestly. And with the knowledge we've given you here, you should be able to understand the table pretty easily and know what it means.
Hopefully. If not, tell us in the
hopefully.
comments.
Yeah, let us know.
We'll make a video about that. We don't care.
Yeah, we'll make a video telling about how terrible we are at teaching D&D. But don't forget, if you did like the content, like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. Let us know how we're doing. If you want to see more content like this, let us know. If you want us to go over specific classes, leave a comment. We'll get to it when we can.
Yeah, I am down to make a video for each class. Also, little teaser, actual play content coming soon.
We do have some
Yeah.
live play coming soon. We're kind of going over what kind of campaign we would like to run. If you guys have a specific thing you want to see, let us know, and we'll take that into consideration.
Yeah, we are willing to run through any like official module. I mean, I'm down if you guys
Easily.
are.
You guys
Also,
wanna
characters.
see-
If you all have like a specific character that you want to see us run, and let us try to put our own spin on it and make it as powerful or as crazy as you want to make it, we can try to throw those in there as well.
Oh, that's a good idea. All right, yeah. So, like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when we upload this content from now on. And till next time.